Finally, something is happening here in Germany. Germany could build a strategic Bitcoin reserve. This is what is now said in a new TV report, where Holger C. Pitch is the guest. We're taking a look at this ultra-bullish report, where Bitcoin is really positioned in a very, very positive and very, very clear way. Here we talk about the advantages of Bitcoin, but also critically about the disadvantages of Bitcoin or the current problems of Bitcoin. In addition, we have Tom Lee, the analyst that the whole world is always looking at, who is now talking about a $5 million Bitcoin price. He also breaks down exactly how Bitcoin will rise to $5 million here. Currently, the Bitcoin price is wavering a lot. People are losing patience, but the ultra bulls and people who have understood Bitcoin fundamentally here are sure that we will go higher, and we will go higher than most people expect. Let's take a look at the ultra bullish new Bitcoin price target, which is really well justified. But let's take a look at the report from Welt, which has talked about Bitcoin in the financial sector, the strategic Bitcoin reserve, Trump, and much more.
And that's definitely a topic for Holger Scapes, our economic expert. Holger, today we're not out in the morning, but in the afternoon. Holger is without a tie today. By the way, we really need to take a moment to acknowledge this.
Holger, that's really interesting what Trump is doing. So he wants to boost cryptocurrencies now, but somehow that's not really reflected in the prices at the moment, right?
But has a bit to do with expectations. And the expectations were, first, the crypto community voted him into the White House with quite a bit of money. Then he said, I'm the crypto president. Then he says, I want to create a strategic reserve. And now he has issued the specific decree. And it says in there, and that's the disappointment for today, that Bitcoin is supposed to be increased in a budget-neutral way. So no active tax money. And the other crypto president that's not supposed to be actively purchased. Okay, budget-neutral, they could try to lend out the gold reserves and pull out a bit of cash to buy Bitcoin. But not actively buying the others has obviously disappointed people, especially when they think now tax money is coming in and it's going to shoot up. And then just that.
That's in the shadows, it fluctuates. It's time taking office.
We're far from the old highs, which were at 108,000. Now we're just kind of bouncing around 80,000, 85,000. And that's obviously the disappointment because everyone was expecting more. And when you're disappointed and the expectations were high at first, it just makes things a bit tricky.
Holger, the interesting thing is what exactly is supposed to go into the strategic reserve of cryptocurrencies. So a regular citizen like me, for example, I don't really get it.
That kind of surprised people too, because it was said at the beginning, it's called Bitcoin, Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. That's what it was called. And then I thought, yeah, Bitcoin Reserve, put Bitcoin in. And then last weekend, all of a sudden it was said, Strategic Crypto Reserve. And then he added, no, not just Bitcoin, but Ethereum is going in, Solana is supposed to go in, Ripple is supposed to go in, and Cardano is supposed to go in too. And everyone was like, okay, the difference is Bitcoin, right? It's a currency that's organized in a decentralized way. There's no player behind it. You know exactly that it follows strict rules. It has a bit to do with gold. The other currencies, there's something completely different, and they're created by private players. There aren't any fixed reserves there, so you can just spend a bit more sometimes or a bit less. And it looked a bit like the portfolio of his crypto advisor David Sachs, which he wanted to boost a little. And that's why it was extreme. On Sunday, the smaller Ripple Cardano went up really strongly because people thought, hey, what is that? And then it quickly went back down because people thought, even the crypto industry was surprised. What's that doing in the strategic crypto reserve? Because it's more like buying from players. The idea is that Solana is a cool project. They're making some meme coins there. Even the Trump coin runs on Solana. It might have an idea, but it has nothing to do with digital gold like Bitcoin. It's completely different. And now we've got a mess where it goes up, down, and just like Trump is, the prices are just as volatile now.
So that's a really, really good assessment to start with. Here, it's just being pointed out again that the expectations are not being met. And that's why you always see that, let's say, the Bitcoin price crashes. There are always some expectations. And when those expectations aren't met, you see a sell-off here. What is also done very, very well is the distinction between Bitcoin and between crypto. And I think that's also something that's really getting overlooked in the whole story. That means a lot of people are disappointed now. Okay, there are no buyers coming in and so on. But here, the fundamentals are really being laid down because maybe the education is being ramped up a bit, as people might actually be starting to understand that there's a difference between Bitcoin and crypto. Otherwise, they wouldn't have created two different reserves, one for the digital asset stockpile and one for the Bitcoin stockpile. Here, there are very clear distinctions. You have to give it to the US government. They really did a good job here by making a clear distinction. And even all the shitcoiners, they all agree that it really doesn't make sense to build up any kind of reserve with Bitcoins on a massive scale right now. Of course, all the Ripple people will be here now, going off the rails again and so on, and hacking into the comments here. Feel free to leave me your comments below about why Bitcoin is the last shitcoin, because that's what you always hear from them, that Bitcoin is the shitcoin. But we just need to be clear that this is about building a currency store, a reserve currency, a reserve asset or something like that. And Ripple, yes, you can talk and do whatever you want, but Ripple is not in any way comparable to Bitcoin in terms of its properties as a store of value. And therefore, it definitely makes sense to make that distinction here. So you can discuss and do whatever you want about it. But the facts just point to the fact that Bitcoin is the superior reserve asset. And you can see that here now. And Holger Sepik also makes that distinction here. Very, very good. But let's keep listening here.
You're obviously our economic expert, and you're also noticing that the financial markets are changing rapidly. So what Trump is trying to push through now, with the strategic currency reserve, with crypto, that might also be a measure that other countries could also adopt the consequences of this. Examples from the U.S.
Well, now we have to say we have digitalization in the world. And if we say we have gold reserves, why not have digital gold too? I can understand that digital gold. I just mentioned the properties of Bitcoin. I can understand that. Would I actively use taxpayer money to do that? I probably wouldn't do that. But for example, in Saxony, there were also confiscated Bitcoins. With a lot of things, you suddenly find a criminal. And they paid with Bitcoin and you can seize them. And I would keep those. And you can do that too. And that's the basic idea in America, to use that as a foundation, the 200,000 Bitcoin. And if we had that in Germany or somewhere else, I'd say I would keep it too, because it's definitely something valuable. And you can hold that as a reserve. But to actively buy that now, that would be too much for me, and it's still too volatile, it goes up and down. And you might think as a taxpayer, my money for some reserves like that, that would be it.
So he clearly says you can create a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and I see it the same way. But here, you could do it similarly to how they do in the US, where you just say, okay, it has to come from budget-neutral sources and so on. That means you wouldn't use taxpayer money for that, but rather draw from other pots, or what you use, or at least that you convert the confiscated ones, converting Bitcoin, but there's just no Bitcoin left in Germany that you could convert. That's the big mistake. That means now we're really in a tough spot here in Germany. We must now realize that this is a historic mistake. And Germany could be hit so hard in the coming years. I mean, if you look back and see, okay, now Bitcoin is at 500,000. Germany sold the Bitcoin. Germany also can't build a stockpile because all the confiscated coins are gone. That would have been the chance. And to actively use taxpayer money and so on to buy Bitcoin, that's something no one dares to do. That's why we're going to end up in the same situation as with the AI race and the internet race. Here too, Germany has missed the Bitcoin race. By the way, it's also very, very nice to see reports on public television that aren't negative. Normally here, in Germany, there are sometimes very, very negative reports about Bitcoin. It's also really nice to hear something positive for a change. Although I have to say that I can't really agree with the argument that Bitcoin is too volatile, because if you build up a reserve, then you have the assets for the long term anyway, then you hold the assets anyway, 10, 20, 30 years. And then the volatility, as we know, isn't really a problem with Bitcoin. By the way, guys, check it out. My motocross bike now has a big Bitcoin symbol on the front, a Bitcoin ticker, take a look. In the back, there's another one. Instead of just sitting here, in the political box, here's another Bitcoin ticker. I got some comments asking if I'd want to take a spin with it in El Salvador, so throw a like for the Bitcoin ticker. Let's fucking go. But now let's take a look at an even crazier clip. And that's Tom Lee, let's say top analyst that a lot of people really listen to, or whether he's a top analyst is always up for debate. So he's definitely a very, very bullish analyst. Some say he's a top analyst. Others say he's not that great of an analyst, whatever. He's definitely very, very well known. And he's making a prediction now, saying that Bitcoin will rise to 5 million US dollars, even though the price is currently stagnating. And that always triggers a lot of people who say, hey, we need to break through the 100,000 mark first and so on. Yeah, that's true. But still, the thing is, a lot of people are looking at the whole thing very, very long term. Exactly, for example, like me, I always look at the whole topic very, very long term. And for a lot of people, it can be disturbing when they say like, where's the Bitcoin price increase now? But the problem is, if you're only looking at an hourly chart, then you're going to miss the Bitcoin price increase. When you look at a 3-month chart, a 6-month chart, a 1-year chart, a 5-year chart, or a 10-year chart, the price increase becomes much clearer. And that's also what Tom Lee is talking about here.
You've got a chart in your deck that shows Bitcoin going to 5 million. How are we getting to 5 million?
Now that's
slowly.
Yeah.
And then all at once.
Yeah.
By the way, if you got to 5 million, because we have a grid to show it, it's that gold would be doubled in price.
Daniel, previous chart.
Gold would double in price.
So this is if crypto reaches parity with gold in terms of market cap?
Yes.
Okay, it's not there already?
No, it's only 10% of the value of gold.
Wait, what? How much gold is there in the world?
There is
10?
$21 trillion $200 of gold.
How much crypto? 3?
Bitcoin's 2. So let's say gold has to go to like $7,000 an ounce. However, I heard something interesting, and I didn't realize gold has outperformed the S&P 6 of the last 7 years.
Yeah.
So
Quietly, too.
yeah, so gold isn't a bad asset class, but Bitcoin. So I think even if it's not like millennials need to buy gold for gold to go up, you just need the boomers to hold it.
You need central banks around the world to buy it and hold it, which they are.
You need the central banks around the world to buy it and hold it, and they are. Bitcoin is a good asset class. Gold is also a good asset class, but Bitcoin is definitely superior here, and he expects gold to double in value. But if gold doubles here, then Bitcoin will more than double. That means if gold rises by 1%, then it rises. Bitcoin by 5 or 6% or something like that, because Bitcoin has a multiplier here because it has a lower market capitalization, which is quite understandable. That means the lower the market cap, the higher here. There's also the chance of generating outperformance when the market capitalization, like with gold, is already very, very high. Then there's the opportunity for positive performance. Just a bit limited. And then he also says, hey, it was really good to hold gold in the past. They somehow outperformed the S&P 500 in 6 out of 7 years. But holding Bitcoin is even cooler than holding gold. And then he comes to the massive Bitcoin price of 5 million. He's not saying when exactly that will happen. I mean, his price target for this year was, I think, something like that, 250,000 US dollars or something like that. Let's see if that will actually happen. And he also touches on that. One example is that central banks hold gold. And later in the interview, he also mentions that this is happening with Bitcoin now, that national states will start holding Bitcoin on a large scale. And then right here, the NASDAQ funds are kicking in, and that leads to Bitcoin going to 5 million in the long run. But like I said, I just can't imagine that happening in this cycle. I can't imagine it happening in the next cycle either. So this is really a long-term price target that they're aiming for. So I assume not before 2030. So definitely not before 2030. But hey guys, feel free to let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think Bitcoin can really catch up with gold and even overtake the gold market here? And if so, then let me know in the comments when that will be. If you're definitely feeling bullish on Bitcoin right now, then I'll drop a link for you down below. 21 Bitcoin, how you can easily, safely, and simply buy Bitcoin. And here at 21 Bitcoin, you can also get up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin with the code. I'm signing off here from El Salvador. Catch you later. Peace out.